The mockery before the storm. The Galactic Dominion had ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. It was the strongest empire in the known universe, spreading across hundreds of planets, controlling millions of species. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, and none had ever been a real threat. So when they turned their attention to Earth, they did not see a worthy opponent. They saw a joke. Earth was a young civilization, barely a few centuries into space travel. Their technology was primitive compared to the Dominion's massive warships. Their fleets were small. Their soldiers were few. And when the Dominion sent their fleet to conquer a human colony, they expected an easy victory. They expected no resistance. What they did not expect was the UNS Dauntless, a battle already won. High Admiral HFY of the Galactic Dominion stood aboard his flagship, the Titan-class dreadnought Verethus, watching the star maps. His fleet had already surrounded Arion 5, a small human colony on the edge of known space. The battle was already won. The humans had no fleet in the area, no reinforcements, no way to fight back. A message had been sent to the colony governor: surrender now or be wiped from existence. The only response they received was a short encrypted signal, a distress call. HFY laughed. Who are they calling for help? Their gods, their ancestors. His officers joined in the laughter. The idea that humans could fight back was ridiculous. That's when the warning sirens blared. One ship arrives. A single ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the battlefield. Just one. The bridge of the Verethus fell silent. Officers checked their scanners, expecting an entire human fleet to follow. But no other ships came. Only one. The UNS Dauntless. A small warship, no larger than a Dominion frigate, its black hull reflecting the dim light of the nearby sun. It had no escort, no fleet, no backup. The Dominion officers burst into laughter again. This is their answer. One of them chuckled. One ship. Against us. HFY smirked, shaking his head. Humans are foolish. Destroy them. The entire Dominion fleet locked weapons onto the Dauntless. They were about to fire when the human ship moved. And everything changed. Faster than the eye can follow. The Dauntless shot forward at impossible speeds, weaving through the Dominion blockade with precision that should not have been possible. How is it moving like that? A Dominion officer shouted. The ship dodged incoming fire as if it could predict the enemy's attacks. And then it fired. A single railgun slug launched from its main cannon, moving faster than anything the Dominion had ever seen. The shot ripped through a Dominion cruiser, piercing its shields, armor, and engines in a single instant. The ship exploded before its crew could even scream. The laughter on the Dominion flagship died. This was no joke. This was a threat. Mockery turns to fear. HFY gritted his teeth, watching the Dauntless tear through his fleet like a phantom. Impossible. No human ship should be able to do this. The Dauntless was not fighting like other ships. Instead of engaging in a slow, drawn-out battle, it used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast, disappearing, then striking again. Every time the Dominion fleet adjusted their formations, the Dauntless was already one step ahead. Ships exploded left and right. The Verethus shook violently as a railgun slug barely missed its hull. For the first time in his life, HFY felt something he had never known before. Fear. A message to the galaxy. The Dominion fleet, once so confident, now scrambled to adjust their strategies. Surround it. The Admiral roared. Block its escape. But the Dauntless did not run. Instead, a transmission came through. A message from the human captain. The voice of Captain Elias Voss echoed across every Dominion warship. You thought we were weak. You thought we would kneel. Now you will learn what it means to fear humanity. Then, the Dauntless vanished, disappearing from Dominion scanners, as if it had never been there. And as the crew of the Verethus stood in stunned silence, One officer whispered the words all of them were now thinking. What have we awakened? The impossible challenger. Fear. It was an emotion the Galactic Dominion had long forgotten. For centuries, they had crushed rebellions, burned planets, and wiped out any species that dared resist them. They believed themselves invincible, the rulers of the known galaxy. But now, they faced something they did not understand. One human ship. Just one. And it was winning. The fleet in chaos. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of the Verethus, watching as the UNS Dauntless tore through his fleet. Ships that had stood undefeated for decades were now burning wreckage. Every time the Dominion forces adjusted their strategy, the human ship countered it effortlessly, like it had already predicted their every move. It wasn't just speed. It wasn't just firepower. It was something else. HFY clenched his fists. How is this possible? The mockery from before was gone. In its place, a cold realization settled over the Dominion officers. This wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. And for the first time, they were the prey. Inside the Dauntless, on the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Elias Voss watched his screen as another Dominion battleship exploded into fire. His crew moved like ghosts, calm, controlled, precise. There was no panic, no hesitation. They had trained for this. Enemy fleet is adjusting formations, Captain, his tactical officer reported. They're trying to box us in. Voss smirked. Let them try. He pressed a control on his armrest. The Dauntless shifted course, not away from the Dominion fleet, but toward them. Straight into the heart of their largest warships. A ship like no other. The Dauntless was not like other human ships. It was experimental. A secret project developed in the deepest military labs of Earth. Its hull plating absorbed energy-based attacks. Its stealth systems made it invisible to most enemy scanners. Its eye-assisted targeting calculated enemy weaknesses in real time. And its railgun system, the most advanced weapon humanity had ever created, could pierce Dominion shields like paper. This was not a warship. This was a scalpel, a ghost, a nightmare. And the Dominion had no idea how to fight it. The first retaliation. But the Dominion was not an empire that gave up easily. HFY turned to his second-in-command, Commander Valroth, a hardened warrior with centuries of combat experience. Bring in the Titan-class battleships. I want that human ship erased from existence. Moments later, 3 massive warships, each the size of a small moon, emerged from hyperspace. Their weapons glowed, charging for a single devastating blast. Let's see them dodge this, Valroth sneered. The Titan-class ships fired. 3 planet-cracking beams of energy tore through space, obliterating everything in their path. The screen on the Verethus lit up with a massive explosion where the Dauntless had been. A moment of silence. Then, cheering erupted across the Dominion fleet. We got them. The human ship is destroyed. HFY exhaled in relief. Finally. But then, the cheering stopped. Because from the flames of the explosion, something moved. Something impossible. The ghost in the fire. The Dauntless emerged from the inferno, completely unharmed. What? It had activated its phase shielding at the last second, shifting its atomic structure just enough to let the Dominion's superweapon pass right through it. The impossible had just happened. And then the Dauntless struck back. Boom! A railgun shot tore through the first Titan-class battleship, slicing it in half. Boom! A second EMP missile disabled the shields of the second warship. The Dauntless moved in for the kill. They're toying with us, Valroth whispered in horror. For the first time in his life, HFY felt the weight of a real enemy. A message to the Empire. Then the Dominion fleet received a transmission. It wasn't an attack. It was a warning. The holographic image of Captain Voss appeared on every Dominion warship. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned like fire. Your empire thought we were weak. You thought one ship could never be a threat. You were wrong. He leaned forward. Tell your leaders what happened here today. Tell them what happens when you underestimate humanity. This is only the beginning. The transmission cut out, and the Dauntless disappeared into the darkness. The beginning of fear. Servok stood frozen. His mighty fleet had been humiliated. His strongest ships had been destroyed. And his enemy. One ship. One single human ship. And worst of all, where did they go? A Dominion officer stammered. They're gone, another whispered. The Dauntless had vanished. No trace, no signal. But one thing was certain. The war had changed. The Dominion had always ruled by fear. Now, they were the ones who were afraid. And across the galaxy, one name began to spread. A name that would haunt the Dominion forever. Dauntless. The first strike. The galaxy had changed. For centuries, the Galactic Dominion had ruled with absolute power, their fleets unmatched, their enemies crushed before they could rise. No species had ever dared to stand against them. But now, whispers spread through the stars. A human warship, alone against an empire, had shattered a Dominion fleet and vanished without a trace. Fear crept into the halls of power. And deep within Dominion space, High Admiral Servok, once a warrior feared across the galaxy, stood in silence, watching the wreckage of his mighty armada float in the void. How? The question burned in his mind. How had one human ship done this? And more importantly, where would it strike next? The search begins. Every Dominion fleet in the sector received a single order. Find the Dauntless. Destroy it. Make an example of them. Patrols doubled. Tracking stations scored every hyperspace lane. The Dominion put a bounty on Captain Ilias Voss, offering entire planets to whoever brought his ship down. But weeks passed, and there was nothing. The Dauntless had disappeared. The ghost in the darkness. They didn't realize the truth. The Dauntless was never running. It was waiting. Deep inside a decommissioned asteroid station, hidden within a field of cosmic debris, the Dauntless crew gathered around their captain. They're looking for us, First Officer Lyra Vale said. Good, Voss replied. That means they're afraid. On the holomap, Dominion supply routes flickered, key fuel stations, relay networks, starship foundries, weak points. They expected a war fleet, Voss continued. We're going to give them something worse. A ghost they can't catch, a nightmare they can't stop. We're going to bleed them dry. The Dauntless prepared for war, striking the Empire's heart. The first target was Station Korath, a key Dominion refueling hub, critical for fleet movement. A fortress, heavily guarded, armed with planetary defense cannons, a place no sane commander would attack alone. But Voss wasn't sane. He was human. The storm breaks. For 3 days, Dominion forces scanned the region. Patrols tripled. The station commander was certain. No ship could get through. Then, on the 4th day, the lights flickered, and everything went wrong. Station-wide power failures. Weapons offline. Shields down. What's happening? The commander barked. His officers scrambled. Systems refused to respond. A virus was spreading through their network, corrupting their AI defenses. And then, the Dauntless appeared. One ship, moving like a shadow, weaving through the debris field at impossible speeds. They tried to activate their weapons. They tried to call for help. But it was too late. Boom. The first explosion ripped through the main docking bay, igniting fuel reserves. Boom. A second strike detonated the reactor core, sending shockwaves across the station. Boom. The final shot pierced the command deck, shattering the control tower. Korath burned. And before Dominion reinforcements arrived, the Dauntless was gone. A ghost in the night. The terror spreads. Across Dominion space, panic spread like wildfire. How did they bypass security? How did one ship destroy a fortress? Why can't we find them? Admirals argued. Governors demanded answers. The High Council, once so certain of their rule, now whispered of an enemy they did not understand. Fear turned to paranoia. Every Dominion station doubled its defenses. Every patrol ship fired its shadows, afraid the next explosion would be theirs. But no matter what they did, the Dauntless struck again, and again, and again. One ship was tearing an empire apart. The Emperor's Fury. On the Dominion homeworld of Valkyris Prime, Emperor Zorvok sat on his obsidian throne, watching the reports. His empire, his undefeated empire, was being humiliated, and the name of its destroyer echoed across the stars. Dauntless, his claws dug into the armrest, summoned the War Council. The time for hunting was over. Now they would crush humanity before it was too late. The war has begun. The largest fleet in Dominion history was assembled. A trap was set, a final battle planned. But as the Dominion prepared their greatest counterattack, Captain Elias Voss smiled, because everything was going exactly as he wanted. Humanity did not need an armada. They needed one ship, one crew, and one war they refused to lose. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The Valoran retaliation. The Dominion had ruled through fear for over 1,000 years. Now, for the first time in history, they were the ones who were afraid. The name Dauntless spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A single human warship had crippled Dominion supply lines, destroyed their refueling stations, and humiliated their most elite fleets. Admirals whispered in disbelief. Governors demanded answers. The High Council, once arrogant and untouchable, was now divided. And on the Dominion throne world of Valkyris Prime, Emperor Zorvok, ruler of the galaxy's most powerful empire, sat in his war chamber, seething with rage. No more games, no more humiliation. Find that ship, burn it from existence. I want their homeworld in ashes. The greatest military response in Dominion history had begun, and Captain Elias Voss knew it was coming. The trap is set. The Dominion mobilized everything, a force unlike anything humanity had ever faced. A war fleet of 10,000 ships, led by Grand Admiral Zorvok himself, scoured the galaxy for the Dauntless. They doubled patrols. They blocked hyperspace lanes. They offered entire planets as rewards for information. The hunt was relentless. But no matter how hard they searched, they found nothing. Because the Dauntless wasn't running. It was waiting. Inside the Dauntless, deep inside a classified asteroid base, hidden beyond the Dominion's reach, Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of a holomap, surrounded by his crew. Every Dominion fleet, every patrol route, every weakness was displayed before them. The crew watched in silence as Voss traced a path across the map. They're putting all their strength into one sector, he said. They think we're trying to escape. He paused, then smirked. They still don't understand. We're not running. We're going to end this. The crew exchanged glances. They have fought impossible odds before, but this was madness. But madness was what humanity did best. And the galaxy still hadn't learned. The ambush at Nebula Prime. For weeks, Dominion forces tracked every anomaly, every strange energy reading, desperate to find the Dauntless. Then they finally got a lead. A signal near Nebula Prime, an abandoned mining world on the edge of Dominion space. Hirithal, furious and eager for revenge, took the bait. His entire fleet warped to the nebula, weapons charged, ready to obliterate their invisible enemy. Then the trap was sprung. The Dominion fleet arrived to nothing but empty space. No human ship, no battle, just the swirling gas clouds of the nebula. Where are they? One officer asked. Sir, scanners are detecting. In coning. Boom. The first Dominion destroyer erupted into flames. Then another. Then another. The Dauntless had been there the whole time, hidden inside the nebula. Its stealth tech made it invisible to Dominion sensors, and now it was ripping their fleet apart from the inside. The Dominion admiral screamed orders. But it was too late. The ambush had begun. The unthinkable happens. For the first time in recorded history, a Dominion Grand Fleet was in chaos. The Dauntless moved like a shadow, weaving between warships, hitting vital points, disappearing before they could retaliate. Boom! A Dominion cruiser exploded. Boom! A dreadnought's reactor went critical. Boom! A battleship lost all power and drifted into the nebula, helpless. The Dominion officers watched in horror. It's one ship. How are they doing this? Grand Admiral Servok gritted his teeth. His fleet was dying, and they still couldn't land a single shot. But he still had one last trick: the counterattack. Servok's command ship, the Titan-class dreadnought Verithus, was the largest warship ever built. Its superweapon, the Eclipse cannon, was capable of erasing entire planets. And now it was locked onto the Dauntless. Fire, Servok growled. A blinding beam of energy tore through space, consuming everything in its path. The explosion swallowed the Dauntless whole. The Dominion officers stared at the screen, waiting for proof that their nightmare was finally over. A long silence. Then, a beeping sound. One of the officers paled. "Sir, it's not destroyed." Servok's eyes widened in horror. The Dauntless had survived. The war changes forever. The Dauntless had done the unthinkable. A single human ship had not only survived a Dominion superweapon, it had crippled an entire Grand Fleet. The Dominion forces broke. Ships fled in every direction, their commanders too afraid to fight. For the first time, the Dominion ran from battle. And as the survivors escaped, a single transmission echoed across their comms. Captain Elias Voss, his voice calm, steady. "Your empire is dying, and this is just the beginning." The Dauntless vanished once more, leaving nothing behind but ruins, fear, and a broken empire. The turning point. The High Council panicked. Their fleets were failing. Their strongest weapons were useless. Their people were losing faith. The galaxy, once terrified of the Dominion, now whispered of rebellion. And in the shadows, humanity prepared for the final strike. The war was no longer about survival. It was about victory. Because now, the Dominion knew the truth. They weren't hunting the Dauntless. The Dauntless was hunting them. The Battle of Earth begins. The Dauntless had done the impossible. A single human warship had shattered a Dominion Grand Fleet, survived the might of their strongest superweapon, and vanished like a ghost. The Galactic Dominion, once feared across the stars, now faced something they had never known before: doubt. For the first time in history, an empire that had ruled with absolute power felt fear. But fear alone wouldn't stop them. They had been humiliated. Their fleets had been crushed. Their name, once spoken with reverence, was now a joke among rebel worlds. The High Council gathered in secret, their voices shaking with fury. "The Dauntless has infected our empire with weakness," the Supreme Chancellor growled. "We must end this, permanently." Then came the order: destroy Earth. The largest armada in Dominion history was assembled. 5,000 warships. Superweapons capable of cracking planets. Millions of Dominion troops sworn to burn humanity from existence. It was no longer about war. This was extermination, and Earth had nowhere left to run. The sky burns. On the outer edge of the Sol system, humanity's last defense outposts went silent. One by one, Dominion warships entered Earth's orbit, blotting out the sun, their cannons glowing with planetary killer energy. The Warbringer-class dreadnoughts, the Dominion's greatest weapons, prepared to fire. From the Dominion flagship Verithus, Grand Admiral Servok watched Earth through the viewport. They defied us. They humiliated us. Now we erased them. The command was about to be given, when the alarms blared. Multiple contacts incoming. What? How? It's them. It's him. The Dauntless returns. A single human warship dropped out of hyperspace. Alone. surrounded, outnumbered 5,000 to 1. And yet, the Dominion fleet hesitated, because they knew what this ship could do. The UNS Dauntless moved like a ghost, slipping between Dominion formations, too fast, too unpredictable. And at its helm, Captain Elias Voss stared at the impossible odds before him and smiled. Let's make history. The Dauntless charged straight into the heart of the Dominion fleet, and the battle for Earth began. The war machine awakens. The moment the Dauntless struck, Earth fought back. From hidden bases across the moon, orbital railguns roared to life, tearing through Dominion warships. Stealth bombers, launched from Titan base on Mars, weaved through enemy formations, dropping EMP payloads that crippled entire battleships. And then, the Titans awoke. From underground silos deep beneath Earth's surface, the Titan-class dreadnoughts, humanity's last secret weapons, rose into the sky. Massive, unstoppable, armed with gravity warheads and plasma lances, these warships were built for one reason: to end empires. The impossible battle. The Dominion, caught off guard, struggled to react. Their fleets had been assembled for an extermination mission, expecting no real resistance. Instead, they found a planet that refused to die. The Dauntless tore through their command ships, cutting off fleet coordination. The Titans crushed their dreadnoughts, weapon to weapon, fire against fire. And on the ground, Dominion forces landed, only to find a world waiting for war. Cities became fortresses. Civilians became soldiers. Every rooftop, every alley, every street became a battlefield. Humanity was fighting for survival, and they were winning. The last stand of the Veritas. The battle raged for hours. The Dominion fleet, once an unstoppable wave, was now fractured, desperate, leaderless. And then, the Dauntless reached the Veritas, the Dominion's flagship. Exervok, watching his forces collapse around him, refused to believe it. We are the Dominion. We do not lose. But the universe no longer cared, and neither did Captain Elias Voss. This is for Earth. The Dauntless fired. A railgun slug, charged with the power of human vengeance, struck the Veritas's core. The ship split apart, its explosion blinding the sky. And as the shattered Dominion fleet fled, broken and afraid, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. Earth had survived. Humanity had won. And the Dominion had just learned the most important lesson of all. Humans do not kneel. The turning point. The Battle of Earth changed everything. The Dominion was no longer feared. Their armies were broken. Their fleets were in ruins. And across the stars, every species that had suffered under their rule saw something new. Hope. Rebellions ignited. Slave worlds rose in revolt. The Dominion, once an unshakable empire, began to fall apart. And at the heart of it all was a name that echoed across the stars. The UNS Dauntless. The ship that defied an empire. The crew that stood against the impossible. The legend that refused to die. Humanity had fought for survival. Now, it was time for vengeance. And the war was far from over. The final stand. The Galactic Dominion was dying. The Battle of Earth had shattered its greatest fleet, destroyed its most powerful warship, and sent its commanders fleeing into the void. But empires do not die quietly. And the Dominion had one last weapon. A doomsday plan meant to wipe humanity from existence. They had failed to conquer Earth. Now, they would erase it, and only one ship stood in their way. The UNS Dauntless. The doomsday fleet arrives. Across the galaxy, Dominion forces had lost faith in their rulers. Planets rebelled. Colonies broke free. Generals abandoned their posts. But in the heart of the collapsing empire, the Supreme Chancellor of the Dominion, Malzoreth, gathered his final fleet. They called it the Doomsday Armada. It was not a war fleet, it was a death squad. Hundreds of warships. Weapons powerful enough to shatter moons. A single purpose: eradicate Earth and every last human in the galaxy. Leading them was the Oblivion, a dreadnought the size of a small planet. And its primary weapon, the Voidbreaker cannon, could tear the fabric of space itself. They would not make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. This time, they would wipe them from history, a desperate gamble. From the ruins of the Dominion High Command, a whisper of the plan reached Earth. A final message from a dying Dominion defector, intercepted by United Earth forces. They are coming. They do not want conquest. They want extermination. Earth had one chance. Not to defend, not to hold the line. To strike first. Because if the Dominion reached Earth, there would be no more battles. Only ashes. The infiltration mission. The Dauntless couldn't fight an entire Armada alone. Not in open war. Not against Oblivion. But Captain Elias Voss didn't plan to fight a battle. He planned to end the war. The Dauntless would slip through Dominion defenses, board the Oblivion, and destroy it from within. It was a suicide mission. But if they failed, Earth would burn. And failure was not an option. The infiltration begins. The Doomsday Armada was preparing to warp into Sol's system when a single human ship appeared at the edge of Dominion space. It shouldn't have been possible. The Dominion fleet had layered security, countless patrols, stealth barriers, AI defenses that could detect any approaching enemy. And yet, the Dauntless was already inside. No alarms had sounded. No warning had been given. Because the ship that had haunted the Dominion for months had just pulled off its most impossible maneuver yet. It was already in their airspace before they knew they were under attack. And now it was heading straight for the Oblivion, the heart of the beast. Voss and his team of UEF Special Forces breached the hull of the Oblivion, slipping into its corridors like shadows. Inside, Dominion troops patrolled in tight formations, unaware of the doom creeping through their halls. The Dauntless crew moved with precision, setting charges at key structural points. But as they reached the reactor core, the alarms finally blared. The Dominion knew they were there. And now, all hell was about to break loose. The last stand. The halls of the Oblivion turned into a war zone. Dominion soldiers poured in from every direction. Gunfire, plasma blasts, and explosions ripped through the corridors. One by one, Voss's team fell. But they kept fighting. Because they weren't here to survive. They were here to win. Voss reached the reactor core, bleeding but still standing. The bomb was set. All that was left was to trigger the detonation. But before he could press the switch, the final doors opened, and Malzorath himself stepped into the room. The duel that decided a war. Malzorath was no politician. He was a warrior, over 9 feet tall, covered in bioenhanced armor, and armed with a plasma blade that could cut through steel. "You have cost us everything, human." Voss, bleeding, raised his combat knife. "Then let's finish it." The two charged at each other. Malzorath swung his plasma blade. Voss dodged, barely, the heat singing his uniform. Voss lunged. His knife struck armor but didn't break through. They fought like beasts, slamming into walls, trading blows that shattered bones and burned flesh. Malzorath, stronger, pinned Voss against the reactor controls. The Dominion leader's blade pressed against the human's throat. "You have lost," he growled. "Your kind will be erased." But then, Voss grinned and raised his detonator. Checkmate. Boom. The fall of the Dominion. The Oblivion exploded from the inside, a chain reaction tearing through the Doomsday Armada. Ship after ship detonated as their command systems failed. What was meant to erase Earth had instead become the Dominion's funeral pyre. Across the galaxy, Dominion forces, leaderless and broken, surrendered. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years had been defeated by one ship, by one man, by humanity. The legend of the Dauntless. No body was ever found. No trace of Elias Voss remained. Some believed he died with the Oblivion. Some believed he escaped, lost among the stars. But one thing was certain. The war was over. And in the ruins of the Dominion, the legend of the Dauntless spread to every corner of the galaxy, a warning to any empire that dared to threaten Earth again. They expected an easy war. They expected to crush us. But humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. And one ship is all we need. The galaxy would never forget, because the Dauntless had changed everything. Forever. Vengeance complete. The war was over. The Galactic Dominion, the most powerful empire in the known universe, had fallen. Their fleets were in ruins. Their armies were leaderless. Their homeworld, once the heart of their reign, was now silent. All because of one ship, the UNS Dauntless, and the man who led it, Captain Elias Voss. But legends come with a cost. And now, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. Would humanity rise as the new rulers of the stars, or would they vanish into history, just as the Dominion had? The silence after the storm. In the days following the Dominion's collapse, the galaxy held its breath. The remaining Dominion warlords, scattered and broken, surrendered without a fight. Their ships drifted in the void, stripped of power, their crews too afraid to resist. Rebel planets, once crushed under the Dominion's iron rule, declared independence. From the burning ruins of their former empire, a message spread across the stars. The Dominion is no more. And yet on Earth, there were no celebrations, no parades, only a single question that no one dared to answer. Where was Captain Elias Voss, a hero without a grave? The Oblivion had been completely destroyed. There was no wreckage left to recover. No signal, no escape pods. Voss had vanished into legend. His name was spoken in every corner of the galaxy. Among the former slaves of the Dominion, he was a liberator. Among the new rulers of fallen war zones, he was a phantom. Among the people of Earth, he was a martyr. Statues were built, songs were written. His face was painted on murals across 100 worlds. But his crew knew the truth. Elias Voss had never cared for glory. He had fought for one thing: human survival. And in the end, he had ensured it: the fate of the Dominion. There was one final decision to be made. The surviving Dominion homeworld sent a desperate plea to Earth's new leaders. We surrender. We ask for mercy. For centuries, the Dominion had shown none. They had burned planets, enslaved species, erased entire civilizations from existence. Now, they begged for survival. The United Earth forces gathered. The leaders of every allied world met in secret, debating the fate of a fallen empire. Would they wipe them out, just as the Dominion had tried to do to them? Or would they do what no empire in history had ever done: show mercy? President Ilara Sato stood before the council. She had once been a diplomat, a believer in peace, but after the war, after the deaths, after everything humanity had suffered, peace felt impossible. And yet, when she spoke, her voice was firm. We will not become what we fought against. We will not exterminate. We will not enslave. But let the galaxy know this: if anyone threatens humanity again, there will be no mercy. The Dominion was dismantled. Its war fleets were melted down into scrap. Its weapons were sealed away. Its former rulers were stripped of power. They would never rise again, and in their place, a new power emerged. Not an empire, not conquerors, but something far more dangerous: humans who refused to kneel. A new dawn for humanity. Earth had changed, no longer just a planet. It was now the beating heart of a galactic power. Not through conquest, not through fear, but through proving what humanity could do. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw humans not as weak, not as prey, but as warriors who could never be broken. The United Earth forces expanded beyond the Sol system, creating a new alliance of free worlds. Species that had once cowered in the shadows now looked to humanity for leadership. And across the stars, one name remained on every tongue. One ship that had changed everything: the Dauntless. A final message: 1 year after the war ended, a probe was launched into deep space, a simple metal beacon carrying a single transmission, a message meant for anyone, any empire, any ruler, any species who might one day look at Earth and see an easy target. The words were clear. We were explorers. You made us warriors. We were peaceful. You taught us vengeance. We did not seek war. But if war comes again, we will finish it. And beneath those words, engraved into the metal hull of the probe, was a name that had become legend, a name that the stars would never forget. Elias Voss. No one knew if he had truly died, but it didn't matter. Because as long as Earth stood, as long as a single human still drew breath, the Dauntless would never be gone. And the next time someone dared to challenge humanity, they would learn the truth. One ship is all we need.